Fans typically beg for what Disney just did at Pirates of the Caribbean: replace a static figure with an advanced animatronic. And fans responded by absolutely hating it. Didn't Disney learn its lesson by getting rid of screen faces with Frozen? Critics are saying this animatronic is a theme park crime for 4 big reasons. And I think this is worthy of a proper trial. Should the new Pirates of the Caribbean animatronic stay in the ride or walk the plank? Hi, I'm James Grosh from Guide to WDW, and in case you've been trapped in a cursed treasure cave for the past few days, Walt Disney Imagineering just surprised everyone by adding a new animatronic to Pirates of the Caribbean in Disneyland, replacing the evocative skeleton that's been there for 59 years with a very advanced, very animated animatronic. It's the same character, now telling the story of how he became a skeleton in the first place using completely new tech. In fact, this is the first use of Disney's next-gen audio-animatronics platform that I talked about in depth on this channel earlier this year. And the fan reaction to this change probably shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. I was in Orlando for an event, saw the news, and made a video explaining the change and the tech, basically saying,
"I just think they're neat."
And as I was driving home, that video not only blew up, but I got so many comments just ferociously dunking on this new animatronic. People are very mad. And it basically boils down to 4 different complaints. Accusation 1, it's a screen face. Accusation 2, the character design is too cartoony. Accusation 3, it doesn't make sense for the story. And Accusation 4, it wrecks the vibes of the ride. So in this trial, I'm going to examine each of these 4 charges. Not just whether or not I like it, but in the context of the history of the ride, the actual story, and the merits of both the technology and the art to determine if this new animatronic should keep his spot on top of that pile of gold. Let's start this trial with charge number 1. It's another screen face, and screen face animatronics are bad. Why is this a crime? Exhibit A, Frozen Ever After. In the 2010s, Disney started really leaning into animatronics with screen faces to mixed success. There are advantages. It allows for a wider range of expressiveness in the face than a mechanical face. Obviously ideal for cartoony characters like the 7 Dwarfs. But the disadvantages boil down to how this technology works. These previous generation of screen faces use rear projection, meaning there's a small projector inside the animatronic's head displaying the animation, kinda like a TV screen. But that makes the face the light source, causing this unnatural glow. And if anything malfunctions, well, there goes your face. And the problems with the screen face approach was the most apparent with Frozen Ever After. The face didn't match the body. There are these really hard scenes where the face ends and the body begins. And the fact that Disney just upgraded Frozen Ever After at Epcot with physical faces, and everybody agrees it's an upgrade, should be proof that screen faces are bad and physical faces always win out. But here's the thing with the new pirate. This face is not a screen. At least not in the same way that Frozen was. Enter next generation audio-animatronics, and understanding how this tech is different from old screen faces explains why Disney put this animatronic here. What makes this tech next gen is that it's a hybrid between a mechanical face and a projection face. The head itself is actually just a 3D printed gray shell that's partially articulated, meaning it has limited physical movement. Instead of rear projection, the face animations are front projected, meaning that the image comes from an external projector that is tracked to the movement of the animatronic. And the tracking has to be perfect, otherwise it completely breaks the illusion. And that's one of the innovations with next-gen animatronics. Check this out. Imagineer Nop can actually move the head with his hand and the image stays tracked. How? This pirate actually has AR tracking markers hidden in the bandana that are only visible to UV light. They turn on the UV lights during daily calibration, and then they're invisible during operations. Plus, Disney has said that they also use motor encoder data for the tracking. So if something breaks and the animatronic ends up in an unplanned position, the image stays tracked. Now that's all fine and good for a tech demo, but what does all that tech actually achieve other than giving me something to nerd out about? There are 2 big advantages of external front projection. 1, because the light source is external, the gray shell on the face diffuses the light. That reduces the glow compared to something like Frozen, and Disney's even said this system can adjust to ambient light conditions. Plus, it blends in more with the rest of the figure. There's not that hard dividing line of the screen that you see in Frozen. 2, the reliability. This new animatronic system uses 2 projectors, one just as a backup. And I imagine maintaining a projector is much simpler than maintaining a custom screen head. Now to the people writing in the comments, this is just like Victoria Frankenstein at Epic Universe. Yes. There are some meaningful technical differences, but at a high level, it's the same basic concept. And there's a reason the industry is shifting to external projection mapping. It looks significantly better than rear projection screen faces, in a way that you can see on camera, but it looks way better in person. There's still a glow, but it's greatly improved. Objection: you're still projecting an image, and that makes it a screen, right? Like a movie screen. Well, I don't know if I would call every projection map surface a screen. Is Cinderella Castle a screen during Happily Ever After? Plus, the fact that this is a mechanical face that actually moves further pushes it out of the realm of screen for me. But no matter what you call it, this really boils down to the debate of projection faces versus physical faces. And in most cases, I think physical faces are preferable. But that's the thing. Most cases. I'd argue that people treat screen faces are bad as too much of a given. And we've had screen faces and projected faces in attractions in various forms for decades. Some very successful, some very much not. Projection faces allowed for extremely expressive characters, like one that could give an impassioned monologue about Frankenstein good, Dracula bad, or a transformation from a pirate into a skeleton and back. And the fact that Frozen was just updated to physical faces is a sign that Disney doesn't see this new projection technology as a one-size-fits-all solution. This shouldn't be judged solely on what tech was used, but more on the execution. So that's what I'll focus on in the verdicts and the sentencing at the end of this video. So we've covered what's going on a technical level, but on a creative level, this is where things get much more interesting. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the details of Imagineering, give this video a like and get subscribed because that's what I do on this channel. Charge number 2. The animatronic looks too cartoony for pirates. This pirate is powered by Unreal Engine, the same game engine that runs Fortnite. The game engine renders the CG animation in real time, and the CG animated face has led to this accusation. The animatronic is too cartoony, not fitting in with the aesthetic of the ride. Does something so exaggerated and goofy fit in a ride as dark as Pirates? The answer is inside Exhibit B, this portrait, which points to why this pirate looks like that and back to the origins of the ride. In the 1960s, similar tensions over style and tone were part of what shaped Pirates in the first place, because two of the main Imagineers working on Pirates had wildly opposing sensibilities. On one side, you have Claude Coates, a master background artist on Snow White and Fantasia, who was brilliant with light and architecture to make moody atmospheres. And on the other side, you have Mark Davis, one of the 9 Old Men, an animator legendary for his character work and over-the-top gags. These two had creative styles that on its surface shouldn't work together, but does in a way that has defined Disney's parks. And you can see it on display in Haunted Mansion. The first half is eerier, that's Coates. The second half is goofier, that's Davis. That clash of styles is why they're grim, grinning ghosts. Pirates also pulled on these tensions, but there was an extra wrinkle. Walt wanted the pirates to feel real, like real people. So it was up to Blaine Gibson to translate Mark Davis's stylized drawings into 3-dimensional characters. Which you might say, aha, Walt Disney wanted realism, case closed, cartooniness doesn't belong in Pirates. But Davis's exaggerated style and love for gags is still very much seen throughout Pirates. It's an important part of the ride's DNA. And the characters are still distinctly Mark Davis.
So when you go through Pirates of the Caribbean, look for that caricature. They're, again, supposed to be real pirates, but they've got that slight cartoony twist to them, and it works.
When I first saw the new Pirates design, I instantly thought, well, this is a goofy goober of a pirate, clearly inspired by Mark Davis. And that was before I noticed this new portrait that Disney added just below the new animatronic. That's Mark Davis as a pirate. This is clearly an homage to Mark Davis. But I can see why people are saying it doesn't fit. He's obviously inspired by Mark Davis, but the pirates on the ride are Mark Davis as interpreted through Blaine Gibson's sculpting. There's that filter of realism there. And this is interesting. WDI showed this brief clip of a pirate that looks much more photorealistic running in their system. Unreal Engine is capable of that level of realism, so the style is a creative choice, not a technical limitation. Fascinating to see what could have been. The new pirate fundamentally looks different than the other animatronics in the attraction. Like, Jack Sparrow doesn't clash as much on that level, even though he's less of a Mark Davis goofy goober. Plus, this animatronic sits really far away from the boat, like 30 to 60 feet. So his expressions have to be theatrical so they can play to the back of the grotto. It looks over the top on camera and places him even more in the Mark Davis cartoony realm. This is all something the jury will have to consider during deliberations. But now let's examine what might be the gravest charge. Charge number 3. It wrecks the story. This is one of the most common and most passionate complaints I see. You aren't supposed to see a living pirate in the caves. It should only be skeletons there, and that breaks the story of the ride. But what is the story of Pirates of the Caribbean actually? This is worth digging into because a lot of it is not very explicit, and fans have filled in the gaps. So you go down a waterfall and go back in time to the time of the pirates. And it all starts with the Haunted Grotto. The original Pirates of the Caribbean is a story told in reverse, with the epilogue first. Ultimately, the caverns in the grotto show the fate of the pirates. This is the result of their deeds. And those previous deeds are then shown. They pillage, they plunder, they rifle, they loot all their way throughout the town. So the grotto is the fate, the town is the heyday of looting. In Paris, they actually flip the script and tell the story in order. You start with the ship battle and the town ransacking, and end with the fate in the grotto, and it works really well. But does the story of this new pirate animatronic work well? So the grotto shows all the pirate skeletons who have succumbed to their greed. It's a dark fate. And this pirate in particular sat on a pile of treasure, staring at the gold pieces in his hand. A really evocative image that works in stillness. What good is that gold going to be for a skeleton who can't move? The news story is that this living pirate is taking in all the treasure, and then he picks up a cursed piece of gold. He succumbs to the curse and turns into a skeleton. But after he's bona fide, his skeleton drops the coin and he transforms back. But he's still a greedy pirate, so he can't resist the gold. So he grabs the coin again. He's stuck in an infinite loop of a never-ending curse. And for an attraction full of looping animatronics, to tell this story that has an actual arc to it in just a few seconds that works as a loop is actually really clever on its own. And the transformation animation is legitimately dark. This gets away from the story beats that people accuse Imagineering of leaning on too heavily. This isn't a happy pirate inviting you to the pirate party at the pirate open house. He's stuck in a grisly fate he cannot escape, caused by his own greed. So the story works on its own, but the question is, should there even be a living pirate in the grotto? I think because these are skeletons, there's an implication that this takes place way after the town scenes. But the timeline is squishy and never defined. And the pirate skeletons in the grotto are also posed and staged in ways that a dead person just wouldn't be in. They're active as the curse takes hold of them. So let's put into the record Exhibit C. This narration from the original 1967 attraction script written by Accusations.
No fear have ye of evil curses, says you. Properly warned ye be, says I. Who knows when that evil curse will strike the greedy beholders of this bewitched treasure?
Perhaps ye knows too much. Ye've seen the cursed treasure. You know where it be hidden. Now proceed at your own risk.
That's the original text of the ride. According to the book Xavier Exitensio, The Legacy of an Artist, Imagineer, and Disney Legend, this idea was the result of a brainstorm between Claude Coates, Mark Davis, and Exitensio. The pirates can't take the treasure with them from the grotto because it's cursed. The story isn't that the pirates have died a long time ago, it's that there's an evil curse that will strike the greedy beholders of bewitched treasure. So the movies didn't invent this idea, but they really ran with it, showing the pirates transforming from skeletons to humans and back. And it's been used in different ways in the different Pirates attractions since. In Shanghai, Jack Sparrow transforms using a Pepper's Ghost effect. In Paris, in the Grotto, there's a Barbossa animatronic that transforms with projection mapping. And in Anaheim in 2018, Disney added this effect, marking the transition point from the Grotto into the battle scene. Critics have been comparing this to Magic Kingdom's Hackbox Ghost. In that version of Haunted Mansion, he shows up in the Endless Hallway before Leota calls the ghost to materialize. And there, you kind of have to do mental gymnastics. He's a rogue ghost who doesn't play by the rules. It's a stretch. But here, this new animatronic shows the curse that has been in the ride since 1967 actively happening. If anything, what it's doing is making the subtext text. But that might not be entirely a good thing, because now we come to charge number 4. He ruins the vibes. This used to be a scene that was still and contemplative and evocative, and now it's active and busy and loud. Dead men tell no tales, but they do make silly sounds over and over. And remember that Claude Coates Mark Davis tension I mentioned before? The grotto is the most atmospheric Claude Coats part of the ride, in a way that Mark Davis praised, saying that mystery area works very well, with the wind and the dampness and then the voices. That doesn't mean there aren't gags here, like a skeleton downing wine like it's the Real Housewives of New Orleans Square. And the skeleton poses are Mark Davis inventions, and complements Coates really well. But his cartoony influence doesn't show up until the busy town scenes. This new animatronic adds a heavy dose of Mark Davis busyness to a scene that used to lean much more heavily towards Coates. I think that's why so many people are bumping up against it. This is the part of the ride that is not supposed to be as busy. But that Barbossa animatronic in Paris is pretty busy and attention-grabbing, and that works great. And this is also the last scene in the grotto. So you could argue it's an escalation that feeds into the transition into the ship battle. But is that argument strong enough? Let's find out with the verdicts. Let's go over the 4 charges one by one. Charge 1, the screen face. Yes, it still glows, but the tech has meaningfully improved, and there are legitimate reasons to use this projection face and not a mechanical face. Not guilty. Charge number 2, the look doesn't fit the ride. I love the Mark Davis homage, and I personally like how this pirate looks. But aesthetically, there is a reason so many people are saying it doesn't look like pirates. Without the Blaine Gibson filter, he does stick out. Guilty. But because there's a family resemblance, charge is reduced to a misdemeanor. Charge number 3, the story. This is one I thought would actually be a really tough debate. But as I dug into the history, this actually fits the story that has been there all along really well. And it tells an animatronic story arc in a really clever way with the infinite loop. Not guilty. Finally, charge number 4, the vibes. Even though they took a static figure and replaced it with a completely new advanced animatronic, that original scene was perfect. They took a still Claude Coats atmosphere scene and cranked up the busyness and the volume. It's not breaking the story, but it is altering the vibes, so it's guilty. Let's move to sentencing. 2 counts guilty. What fate do I sentence this pirate to? I have an idea. And I recognize as judge, jury, and executioner, I am not at all impartial. This animatronic features new technology, nods to Imagineering history, and has a really clever story bit baked into it. I am the exact target audience for this. So much of the creative success of Pirates and Haunted Mansion is this fusion and tension of the style of Claude Coats and Mark Davis. The grim meets the grinning. That is a combo that is hard to fully capture. For me, that's one of the reasons this new animatronic actually works and should stay in Pirates. But I do think it's in the wrong Pirates. And that's not to say you can't update the original or try something new. It actually makes sense to add a technologically advanced animatronic in the attraction that helped advance animatronics as an art form. But there's a much better Pirates to put this at, because each Pirates has its own identity. Anaheim has the original classic. Disneyland Paris has the amazing remix. Shanghai has the modern marvel. But Disney World has always had the short end of the stick when it comes to Pirates. It got the knockoff, the smaller, shorter clone of the Disneyland version. Disney World doesn't even have the treasure scenes we've been talking about all video in the caves. So my sentencing, which is binding, Disney must pack this up and send it to Disney World. Now, without the treasure scenes, you'd have to alter the caves, but I think there's a much better spot for this new pirate. Put him at the end, replacing Jack Sparrow, which would end the ride on a darkly comic note, and tie the 2 story sections together. Placing it at the end shows where the curse gets started, foreshadowing the pirate's fate in the grotto's epilogue. After all, it's the treasure that's cursed, not the grotto. The more I think about it, the more I love this idea, and it would work at Disney World or Disneyland. Now, do I have an ulterior motive because I think it's actually cool and want an easier way to see it? Yes. But also, Pirates at Disney World could use a dose of its own identity. But let me know what you think. What verdict and fate would you give this animatronic? This has been James from Guide to WDW. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you real soon.